Wolfenstein 3D is one of the most important first-person shooters ever made. It had fast-paced action that still kept you looking out for enemies through pseudo-tactical gameplay, with its engine that the game was made with being absolutely revolutionary. So if Wolfenstein is considered the grandfather of first-person shooters, then Doom is its true father. But before that, we have to go backwards to find out why Doom was so important, not just to PC gaming, but playing gaming. All the way back to the end of the 70s and early 80s. See, PC games were very different from arcade games. Arcades were designed around monetizing difficulty and community. Games were difficult so that people would spend more money to keep playing them. Even if you did get to the end of the game, you still didn't beat Paul's high score. Stupid Paul. Games also had to be simple and quick, so most of them wound up being based in action. Shooters, racers, road crossers, Donkey Kong. Arcades were intense and competitive spaces. PC games, on the other hand, were much slower experiences, built on text-based story as well as exploration of the in-game world. The year the Atari 2600 originally released, PCs got Zork and Colossal Cave Adventure, the two most important text-based games of all time. 1981 was seen as the peak of the golden age of arcade games. Donkey Kong, Centipede, Defender, Frogger, Galaga. While PC got Wizardry and Ultima, the most influential RPG games of all time. Where 1983 was the year the arcade and console industry crashed, PC got Lode Runner and the third entries to Wizardry and Ultima. The space had barely felt the industrial resurrection brought by Super Mario, because PC gaming never died out, it just kept advancing. But while it did advance, it did it entirely by focused experiences designed to immerse the player in the story and the world of the game. Action games, on the other hand, never really got much of a chance to shine on PC, mainly due to the processing power needed for side-scrolling, making action games definitively worse on PC. To fix this issue, a guy named John Carmack, working at Edge Magazine of all places, decided to make an engine and created a system called Adaptive Tile Refresh that, to summarize, made 2D side-scrolling actually possible on a computer. He and a few others remade Mario 3 and pitched a PC port to Nintendo. They turned it down, so they made Commander Keen, which they used the success of in order to finance their future projects that would use the continually updated engine with every new game they made. Carmack also quits his job at Edge and takes Adrian Carmack, no affiliation, John Romero, and Tom Hall with him. Eventually, after a few iterations of the engine, along with some smaller FPS games before it, id Software would release Wolfenstein 3D, a first-person shooter about running around and killing Nazis. Wolfenstein was an extremely impressive game for its time, and was faster than just about every other game on the market. But the team wanted to make something else. They wanted a game that was bigger, faster, more complex, more violent. The end results: Doom is a game that I find difficult to explain why it's good. Not because I don't like it, but just because, where do you start? The speed of the combat mixed with the gunplay, the variety of weapons from shotgun to chain gun, rocket launcher, plasma rifle. There's a weapon called the BFG 9000 that acts as an effective screen nuke. Remember earlier when I said Wolfenstein had pseudo-tactical gameplay? That's because while it was fast-paced, the game had this mechanic where the closer you were to an enemy, the more damage you took, which could lead to one-hit deaths at times if you were careless. But it also made hordes of enemies much stronger, and made you think about how to deal with them individually. Distance, careful movement, reaction time, these were the keys to how to play through Wolfenstein while adding layers of depth and complexity. Doom looked at Wolfenstein and says, "Alright, here's how you play a real game, bitch. Doom is not a horror game for having demons. It is a power fantasy for how easily you dispose of them. You will fight hordes of these things. Imps, demons, meatballs, cybers. You will plow through entire armies in a matter of minutes. And you don't just take out enemies in Doom. You will kill them. Every single one bleeds and collapses on the floor, and when an enemy falls, they don't disappear later. Their corpse will stay there." The combat in Doom entirely encouraged running around and attack enemies, the complete opposite of its predecessor. Even the power-ups encourage it, with rage allowing you to punch through enemies, making them completely explode, and ice training and vulnerability. Shit, the game gives you a chainsaw. It's only really useful on low-level zombies, pinkies, and meatballs, but still, the fact that they do it. Then there's the music. This game has a dense soundtrack full of hard-hitting, fast-paced, absolute bangers, and when it's not trying to emphasize its action, then it's aiming for an eerie, atmospheric tone. This game can genuinely feel unsettling at times. The visual design of Doom is incredible. The first 2 episodes emphasize the fact that it takes place on a research center in space. The walls are covered with metallic plating, colorful buttons and wires. If you walk outside and look up past the brown floor instead of just seeing black like a regular game of the time, you get this gray Rocky Mountain background representing the moon. It's a great attention to detail, but then he takes you to Mars, which I didn't know until I looked it up because I thought this was the entrance to hell, which it turns out was actually episode 3. Good God, the walls are made of skin. There's remains of others everywhere. You can sometimes see the faces of the damned in certain walls. The visual design of Doom is fantastic, but then there's the game design. See, Wolfenstein was a huge leap. All the rooms were these big blue box designs with very few distinctive features, and it made it very easy to get lost and confused. Doom is a much more detailed and articulate game, and yet you can still very easily get lost in Doom all the time. But it's never because things look the same. So why would I get lost if the design of the game stands out? Okay, so now let's take a look at a level through the in-game map of Doom. Okay, no, really, where do I go? These stages are massive and have keys that cause a huge amount of backtracking. This is the biggest flaw of Doom, and even then, it's directly tied to the scale and ambition of the game. And also, you can lose all your items on death. It's just awful. You also don't carry items between episodes, which I didn't have much of a problem with until the final episode, Thy Flesh Consumed. These levels start at some of the most difficult levels in the entire game. They are brutal. The amount of enemies in the first 2 stages are greater than the amount of ammunition and health that you will need in order to deal with them. But after the 3rd map, you will experience some of the best first-person shooter combat and design in the entire genre. Just don't play Sigil thinking that'll be like this. Sigil is a much prettier episode, but it's also a much more difficult episode. And it's not difficulty as in Dark Souls rewarding difficulty. It's difficult as in, when is this ending? But anyway, it's time for the checklist. For the ways Doom was important as a game. Let's see. It established the standard for a shooter game to the point where every first-person shooter game was referred to as a Doom clone. The multiplayer mode is seen as the invention of the deathmatch, and it's also attributed to the rise of online multiplayer. Its gratuitous and graphic violence pushed not only what people thought was possible for a video game, but also what video games were allowed to be. The PAR system laid the foundation for the speedrunning community, and the game's data files were made intentionally accessible, leading to one of the first widely successful modding communities in the history of gaming as a medium. If you haven't played Doom yet, just do it. The game is so accessible that it's playable on a pregnancy test. Doom is arguably the single most important influential game of all time, not just for first-person shooters or PC either, but the entirety of gaming. Doom is definitively one of the best games ever made.